Well, okay, it's a Wednesday morning in Australia, but it's actually Tuesday night in the United States, which is our co-host, the home of Cape Canaveral there, none other than Elise Herrera. She's right there at the top. And, and our guest, okay, right from a place between Picton and Mittagong. I'm going to show you the actual map there so you can see where she is, but I'm looking forward to the show today. Thank you very much, and it's my pleasure to welcome both Judith and Elise, and it's well, good morning for Australia, Elise.
Yes, thank you so much, Jeffrey. Thank you, everybody, for being here. As always, just honor for having you here and being with us. And very honored today to have Judith Collins, especially because she's from Australia and just somebody who has so much knowledge. And Judith, usually I like for our guests to tell us their bio, like how did you get to where you are? Because I don't like reading bios out loud. I like for the people to get to know you personally. So just give us the summary, because there's a lot to talk about. So tell us, Judith, all about you and how you got to where you are today.
Well, many moons and light years away, I was born seeing the human aura. And so I didn't understand that it was supernatural or esoteric or occult or anything like that. I just grew up seeing auras. And therefore, I had to learn my own language. I had to understand colour. I had to learn what colour combinations mean. And I did that just watching people. So as a little girl, I sat on the front steps watching the people go past. I climbed up a ladder on the side fence to watch people at the bus stop. I read the auras of people at school. By the time I got to 4, I realised that everybody lied and everybody was deceitful. And my mother helped me to understand what that meant. She said that there's little lies that everybody tells for self-defence and self-protection, and that there's deceitfulness. If it doesn't hurt anyone, there is nothing really wrong with it. So she called my brothers in and my father in and said, do they have that in their energy? And I said, yes, they do. And she said, well, do you love them? And do they care for you? And I went, yes. She said, so it's safe. And so that's how my mother looked after it. My mother was understanding that I saw everything in colour. So she wrote to the colour pencil company Derwent in England and asked them for a colour chart if they had one. And they sent it to her. And so she was able to teach me the different ranges of green and reds and purples and pinks and so on. No such colour as just pink, right? All the variations of it. So by the time I got to about 6 or 7, I had that information. When I started school, the teachers were concerned and I would go to the local doctor because I was born premature and I was born crippled and deaf. And so I had a lot of medical treatments under the age of 5, learning to walk, and they straightened my legs and so on. And the doctors were concerned, and school teachers and doctors had me going back and forth psychologists to be examined. The one psychologist that I'll share with the audience, I got very tired. I was about 8 years old at this time, and I got fed to the teeth of seeing psychologists asking me the same boring questions over and over again. So the psychologist started to ask me questions, and then I said to her, I said, can I ask you a question? And she said, yes. I said, why won't you go with him? And she said, who? And I said, your husband. And she said, go where? I said, go to Melbourne. And she said, how do you know that? I said, I'm reading it. I can see it. And I said, if you don't go, you won't have a marriage. It's ended. And she just put her pen down, looked at me, and she said, there is nothing wrong with you. You're just more insightful than the average person. And she was the last psychologist I ever saw until I was 14 years old. So there you go. I proved my value, I think. But other than that, my life story was that I went through school. I sat in the playground alone. I never had friends. I could never trust anybody. I could see their auras. I could see all their wrongs and their rights and whatever. So I never trusted anybody in my life apart from my immediate family. So I sat in the playground at right up into senior years in school, never having anything to do with anybody. I didn't make friends. My friends were only my brothers, my cousins and so on, who I knew and trusted. And fortunately for me, I went to a meeting, a local community meeting that my mother pushed me to go to. And lo and behold, sitting opposite me on the table was an aura who belonged to my husband, right? I was 17 years old, and I'm looking across there and I thought, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But as the community group started to organise some outings, public outings, community outings, we got talking. And then 10 days later, 10 days after meeting, this is an old soul. My husband was an old soul. 10 days after we'd been going out, he said to me, he said, can I talk to you about something that's rather serious? And I went, yes. And he said, it's about marriage. And I went, marriage? And he said, yes. He said, I've come to the conclusion that I don't want to spend another day in my life alone without you. So I think we should talk about getting married. So there you go. This.
Wow.
So it was my husband, and it was my family and the safety of my family. It was my sister-in-law who was studying homeopathy, and she took me to an introduction meeting, and because she wanted company in the car. And after the meeting, the homeopath had been talking about different types of natural treatments and so on. And she mentioned the word aura and how the energy works and how homeopathy works. And my sister-in-law said, let's stay behind and talk to her. So we went up and talked to her, and she explained what I was seeing was called a human aura. So I was 23 years old, and she told me that. When I was 27, something amazing happened. I got a knock on my front door. Now, I live on a dirt road on a farm where nobody can find me, simply because I protect my own aura that way, right? So the knock comes on the door, and there's three adults standing at the door. And I say, can I help you? And they say, we think you're it. And I said, what do you mean I'm it? And they said, well, we belong to a spiritual group and we meditate. And the group has been channeling this energy, this force, this energy. And we live 40 kilometers away, and we've been tracking it. So we decided to come down early this morning into the location we thought that it was where it was. And we sat there and we meditated on the grass outside the car. And then we located where this energy was. So we tracked it. And that's you. And I said, no, I'm sorry, you got the wrong place. Don't know what you're talking about. My husband, Mr. Chatterbox, my husband comes to the door and he says, what's this about? And the people explain it. And my husband, Paul, said, oh, yes, that's her. Come in. I go, oh, no. So the people say to me, can we run a few tests? And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. Can we run a few tests, please? And I said, well, what kind of tests do you want to run? And she said, well, I'm going to take something out of my bag or pull something out of my bag. Can you walk into your kitchen, please? And they were sitting in the sitting room, and I went into the kitchen. But what they didn't realise is that I could see through walls. And so auras go through walls. I didn't have to guess or analyze or do anything like that. And I just yelled out at the top of my voice, you just took your keys out of the bag, you just put them in your pocket, you just pulled a handkerchief out of your handbag, and you're now blowing your nose. And that was me being irritated because I wanted to go out and do the garden, and I didn't want to do any of this nonsense that they were talking about. My husband got talking to them, and they said that what I had was of value, and they wanted to come back. So they came back about 6 weeks later with a couple of other people, and they took me through a few other tests, and they said, we've got to get you out there in the public. And I said, no, thank you. Anyway, my husband said, yes, I think it's important. So I didn't want to do anything. My husband got on the phone and rang my mother. He rang my mother and said, we've got people here and they think that she should be out in the public. And will you talk to your daughter? And I said, no. So my mother said, can I talk to one of the people, please? So my husband and my mother put me out there in the public. Now, this is the story of how it started. It was the Mind, Body and Spirit Festival in Sydney. It was the first one ever to be held in Australia. My husband booked a stall and said that we were going to go there and I could just talk to people. And I thought people could ask me questions. But that wasn't the plan. I saw on the stand that he had printed out all these blank images of the human body and had a set of big set of colouring pencils. And I thought, oh, I don't want to do this. So I went for a walk while he was setting up the stall, and I bumped into a friend who was a yoga teacher. And I said, what are you doing here? And she said, I'm going off to a free workshop. And I said, what's it about? And I said, look, I might as well come with you. I said, Paul's doing all this. I don't know what he's doing. So we went to a 40-minute workshop, 40 minutes after the show started, 40 minutes. When we came out, there was this long queue. And she said to me, my friend said to me, I wonder what they're selling up that aisle. And I said, yeah, I know. I said, let's go and have a look. So we went there and they were all waiting for me because my husband put a big photograph up on the stand of me and everything I could do. I walked in. Everybody was saying, hello, Judith. And I thought, how do you know me? How do you know me? And then I saw the photograph on the stand. And then I didn't know what could do. I'd never done it before. Never. I didn't know what to do or how to talk to people. And Paul just leant over and he said, you just do what you're born to do, my darling. Gave me a kiss on the cheek and said, do it. And the first person came in and I did it. And then the third person in the queue was a wife. And she sat down in front of me and her husband came up behind her and he said, what are you wasting your money on this for, darling? Why are you getting this done for? What's it going to tell you? How's it going to help you? There's other things to do here. Why are you wasting your money? And he went on and on and on. And I sat there and I said to him, I said, if you don't keep your mouth shut, I will start talking about the metal plate that you have in your head. And he went, how do you know I've got a metal plate in my head? And I said, well, it's about 11 years old. I said, I'd say it from an injury or an accident. And he said, you're right. And he turned to my husband and he said, have you got any more appointments? And Paul said, no, she's booked out till 6 o'clock tonight. So he came back the next day and saw me. That was the beginning.
Wow. Wow. That is such a wonderful story. I love it. I love it.
He pushed you into it, didn't he? It reminds me of Michelangelo getting pushed into doing the Sistine Chapel by the Pope.
But I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I was able to put people on the right track. I'll give you an example. A lady came to see me and from her waist upwards, her aura was so bright and shining. She had lived in India for 2 years and she was studying spirituality and she was training to become a master of yoga, right? A yoga master teacher. And I said to her, oh, my God, you've done a lot of work on yourself. And she explained how. And I said, but according to your aura, you're taking 3 steps forward and 2 steps backwards. She said, yes, I feel like that. And she said, I thought I'd come and see why that is. And I said, well, you've got all these sepia colours and olive colours down around your feet. And I said, those combination of colours are usually somewhere between 20 to 30 years old. And I said, looking at this tan colour coming through there, that's a male energy. And I said, so what's blocking you? And she said, that's my father. I haven't spoken to my father for 20 years. And I said to her, well, until you do that, till you resolve that, you're not going to fly. So 2 years later, she comes back to see me, and she had her old aura drawing. She got me to do an aura. Then she showed me her old aura drawing, and I said, oh, my God, that's changed. And she said, yes. She said, I got my brothers, and we tracked my father down. It took us 3 months to track him down. And then the three of us have all built a relationship with him. And she said, I thought that I could do it by myself. And then I thought my brothers might hold me back. So I dragged them in as well. And we've all got a relationship with our father now. So that's gone.
Very good.
Beautiful. Well, that's the joy of helping others, right? It's just it feels our soul. It's just so beautiful. I can't even imagine. I mean, there's so much information that's here that I like, okay, how do I even start? Like when you said you could see through walls, like, can you explain to me about that? Like, how can you see through walls? Is it because you're reading the aura that's coming through the wall, or?
Yeah, the aura's coming through the wall. Yes.
Okay.
Auras can come through anything. I've done talkback radio, where I have people have phoned in with illnesses that doctors can't find, and I've done all that on the phone. I'll tell you a funny one. This fellow, I was doing talkback radio in Western Australia, and this fellow rings in and he says, hello, my name is Ernie. And I said to him, what on earth have you done to your thumb? And I said, isn't that painful? He said, yes, it is. And I said, have you gone to a doctor? And he said, yeah, I have. And I said, what did the doctor do? I said, because it's all infected. And he said, well, the doctor gave me some cream. I said, that won't work. And he said, well, it hasn't been working. And I said to him, hang on. I said, hold your thumb up at an angle. So he did. And I said, I'll look at it. I said, have you been cutting back plants or rose bushes or something? He said, yes. He said, a week ago I pruned my mother-in-law's rose bushes. I said, you got the tip of a thorn in there. It has to be sliced and taken out. And he said, oh, thank you. There you go.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry. I know that you're not going to like to hear this, but that sounds like superpowers to me. And, it's just amazing to hear you say that. So what I would love for you to do is really explain to people who think the aura is one thing and they're just colors, and they go get a picture taken and it's this color and that color, and they really don't understand, including myself, really what it is, because it sounds like it's much more complicated than I even imagined. So just give us a little lesson about that.
The human aura, for everyone who's listening, the human aura is a blueprint of who you are. The colors are generated in your aura by the way that you think, the way that you feel, what you hear, and what you say, the people that you relate to, and your life experience. And that's how the colours come. The colours are generated in the astral layer of the aura. The physical layer only has an opaque colour. The next layer, which is the etheric layer of the aura, it's a twin layer. And that colour is a pale blue. And the twin area of it has colour in it, which it brings down through the astral layer of the aura. The astral layer of the aura is very, very important for everyone to understand. People learning to see auras will never see the astral aura. It takes years. For me, I have a doctorate in seeing auras. Most people are starting in primary school. And so when they're learning to see auras, they don't see them the way that I do. But I have taught a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists, school teachers, social workers, youth workers, counsellors, all the people who work with people, how to see and read the human aura so that they can provide better care for them. And the human aura can draw on the astral layer of the aura is where near-death experience occurs. The astral layer of the aura is where past life regression information comes from. It's our memory. Now, I've worked with medics across the world. I've had the opportunity to watch people die, whether it be children, people from accidents, people dying of cancer, or aged care people dying. And I've seen the processes is exactly the same in all people. The astral layer of the aura, which I believe the eternal mind exists. It's our memory. For New Age people, it's called the higher self, right? But in the aura, it shows it is an eternal mind. When we leave this lifetime, it releases through the solar plexus. The astral aura comes together with the twin etheric. They release through the solar plexus, and the eternal mind goes with it. And the eternal mind is very, very important because you can go to a medium and the medium will channel your deceased loved one, and that mind carries the memory of sharing a life with the person who is still alive. And they can communicate and they can give clear, concise messages through the medium. And that's how all that works. That's the mechanics of the human aura. Colours in the aura, there is no such thing as one colour in the aura. It can't be. And auras don't change instantly. If you're an entrepreneur, the colours in your aura are likely to stay for 5 to 7 years because you're developing whatever you are developing. If you're a medical researcher, those colours can be there for 5 years while you're making your discoveries. The colours that change around the head are caused by thinking, changes in beliefs, hearing things that we don't like or we do like, listening to music. All the colours around the head change, but that's not important. The most important colours in the human aura are under the feet. Why? Because when you see or hear something, or you read a book or an article in a magazine, or you go to a lecture, what you hear forms a belief, and that carries down into your shoulders. And the colours in your shoulders begin to sort and sift what's necessary from unnecessary in your life and what you're going to carry forward. That can be relationships. It can be change of work. It can be belief systems. It can be spiritual experiences. And that carries forward into your belief systems. The colours that come down your arms show how you are integrating that into your life, how you are conducting your life. Then you get to the end of your arms where you've got these lovely, lovely little fingers here. And they show skills. They can show past life connection skills as well. They can show how you conduct your life, what's holding you back, your thinking patterns that are holding you back. So there's a whole range of colours, and I'll get to that in a moment. The colours that come down underneath your torso are very important because they start to form the gel of who you are moving forward in the next 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, 6 years of your life. That's what they do. So they're vitally important. The colours that come down your leg show how you are interpreting that and how you choose to journey. Are you going quickly? Are you going steadily? Are you cautious? Are you frightened? Are you excited? Are you elated? Are you bringing all your creative vision with you? Then the colours down your feet show how you have processed it and how you filtered through your entire system, That is how you think, what you believe, what you feel, past emotions, past lives, relationships that you're sharing in this lifetime, visions that you may have had. And underneath the feet, if I want to read an aura, I go straight to the feet and I know 90% of what's going on in that person's life from the ankle downwards. Yes, that's it. So that's how you read an aura. The colours in the aura are all different colours, and all different patterns mean different things. You put in the hands, you've got orange and red in the hands. That shows that somebody is an entrepreneur. And so I'll look at that. I'll look at the other colours in their aura, and I'll say to them, what kind of business are you developing at the moment? And they'll say, oh, yes, well, I'm starting this YouTube channel and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and we can have a conversation. If I've got navy blue and I've got pale blue and I've got apple green sitting there, I know it's a doctor. And so I can talk to the doctor and say, oh, what kind of medicine do you practice, and whatever, are you a specialist, and so on. So the colour combination speak as a language. Now to explain how it works. Anybody who wants to understand an aura has to understand that every colour vibration is like our alphabet. If you take the letter A, say that's red, and we take the letter S and say that's green, and then we take the letter T and say that's blue, we've got Sat. But if we change the letter S and the letter T, and we put B, and we put M, we've got BAM. So all the colours change the language. All the combination of the colours change the language. So when you read an aura, you are reading it through the colour combinations and how they are entwining. Now, having said that, the aura is not plain and simple. The aura has polka dots. It has squares. It has triangles. It has little crocheted patterns, which are complex, and they have to be unraveled to understand what they mean. It has stripes. It has little squibbles. It has plaits of energy all the way through it, and that's caused by the intricate complications or heaviness of what a person is going through at the moment. So that's basically the human aura for people to understand. So what can it tell us? Anything and everything. I've worked with the police, I've done law enforcement, I've worked with medical researchers, I've worked with medics in hospitals. I have spent my whole life studying the human aura, looking at how it works. In the 1990s, I volunteered to go to the Bosnian-Croatian war so I could study what the aura looked like under fire. What did it look like? What did war look like? What did returned soldiers look like? What did the people, how did they cope? And what was the fine line between terror and fear? And did fear ever cross the path of terror? Or did terror overpower fear? Or were they something totally different? And I found out they are totally different things. So I've put myself everywhere, anywhere to study the human aura, simply because I know that the information is of value to a whole range of people, to psychiatrists, to people with schizophrenia, to people with cancer, to people who are on a spiritual path that may have been connected to etheric levels of beings, to people who are opening clairvoyant states, to children who are handicapped. It's been a wealth of life experience. So there you go.
Oh, wow. Just so amazing. So amazing. So what in your life, how has this helped you in your life? Like, like having this superpower, how has it helped you in your life? Like, how do you use it in your daily life?
Yeah, well, I'll change your word from superpower, because that's very egotistical type of energy, right? Mine's just a natural ability. That's all it is. It's a natural ability. I don't even call it a gift, no, because nobody gave it to me, right? I came into life with that, and I don't know why. I don't know why it never switched off, and I think that's because. I think it's because I've put my life in service to human beings and to animals and to plants and to the planet and so on. So how have I put it into order? I've been able to help people since I was a child. I've been able to help people in all different walks of life growing up, but also too, I had a fascination. We used to get spiders in the house. Everybody gets a spider in the house from time to time. And I fell in love with spiders because I could see their auras and I understood their position in life. And that was about the very first thing where I understood the purpose of all things in life, and how every tiny minuscule little thing had a pattern and had a role to play in life. And to take one thing away handicaps life, disables life in some way. And I learnt that about spiders. And then, of course, I moved out into my garden. My mother used to have flowers in the garden, and she just grew a few herbs for cooking, parsley and whatever. This is back in the 50s, right? This is way back in the 50s, before it became really fashionable to, grow your organics and stuff like that. And so I then grew up. Under the age of 10, I saw all of this, and my grandfather had a vegetable garden, and I could see what was happening. I could see that the energy of a potato growing there and a cabbage growing over there, they weren't getting on. They were like brother and sister who fought all day long. And I'm thinking, wow, how is that? And so I began to understand how plants work together and didn't like each other. It's just like you go into a neighbourhood and you might say, I've got a really nice house, and then you move out 5 years later because you don't get on with your neighbours. And that's what the plants were doing. Anyway, I started to make a list of that, and I was telling my grandfather about it. My grandfather said to me, he said, well, write it down. So he gave me a writing pad and I wrote it down. And so I drew up a little plan of which plants weren't getting on. So he said to me, well, when we harvest those plants and next year when we grow those plants, let's do it according to your little plan. Well, years later, the first book I ever wrote, and I've written lots of books, the first book I ever wrote was called Companion Gardening, Working with Mother Nature. Oh. I wrote that book 36 years ago. Wow. 36, something like that. I wrote it 36 years ago. And that book, the publishers tell me this, that book has never never had one day that it hasn't sold one copy of the book. So it's been selling non-stop for 36 years.
Wow. Well, I definitely need to get it.
There it is. Yes. There it is. And It goes through and it tells you what ingredients you can actually throw in a compost where they all get on. There is such a thing as throwing things in a compost where they don't get on.
True.
Yep, true. Yep. So I've put it all in there, and I've drawn up plans and everything in the book that show you how to lay out the garden and everything to get best quality. It also gives you natural insect control. So I've talked about how you grow your plants, and if you want to grow, anybody out there that's a gardener, let's do a garden right now, right? All gardens grow as a forest, right? They grow in a forest. Now, if you go to a forest anywhere, you will never find a lettuce or a carrot growing inside the forest because it's too dark, It's too many shadows. There's not enough sunlight, and the rain doesn't filter through. So all fruit and vegetables, oh, look at this. All fruit and vegetables, they grow on the outskirts of a forest. But if you go into an open field, you will never find vegetables growing in the open field because they need protection in different seasons. So vegetables will grow. I'm looking at all of this now. So right there on that screen, you can see turnips, root vegetables growing in there, and you can see spinach growing in there as well. So what you do when you build your garden, you build it like a forest. So you have a square or a round garden, you put your tallest vegetables in there, and that could be celery, that could be kale, it could be silver beet, chards, any of the chards. That's for American, silver beet for the English, and so chards, they grow tall. So what are the plants that need protection? Well, how do you know they need protection and how much sun they do? Easy. All you do is you go to a cabbage leaf and you tear the cabbage leaf, and the cabbage leaf is tough. So it tells you that it will take much more sun. But if you tear a lettuce leaf, it is soft. So it needs shelter. So you put it under the tall chard and put the cabbage at the front, so it can take the sun and protect the lettuce. And so you're working, just look at, there's the cabbage and the lettuce right there. Yes. And therefore, when the cabbage grows bigger, the leaves will cover the lettuce and protect it from the harsh sunlight, which will burn and take all the water out of the lettuce. So it's a whole communion of life in the veggie garden, just at the top of the garden. So every vegetable plot should be grown as a forest. So you've got your tall plants in the middle and you've got your smaller ones as they go out. And also the other thing that happens is that when you grow vegetables together like that, they disguise each other's scent. So insects, if you put cabbages in a row, the insects will see it as a airport, and they'll go, oh, look at all of that. Let's go, boom, 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 and they'll eat the whole lot. But if you mix it with other vegetables, it confuses the insects. So you've got a greater chance of getting really nice vegetables if you can confuse the insects. There you go.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I know, so tell us a little bit more about your the Earthkeepers and how amazing the permaculture that you have been working on for years and years and years, really the pioneers with your husband on creating just a self-sustaining house.
Well, the journey into gardening, we've been self-sufficient, 83% self-sufficient for over 50 years, 83%, right? Our food bill totaled most probably about 800 Australian dollars per year. Wow. And that included animal food as well. We didn't do supermarkets. We did everything from milking cows to making our own cheeses, to making our bread, our ice cream, making fruit wines. My husband made beautiful salamis and gorgeous sausages and everything. And we kept all levels of animals. We had fish in our dams. We did the whole lot. We just lived off our property. When COVID was on, we didn't even know COVID was on because we didn't have any rationing. We didn't worry about the supermarkets. We had everything on our property, and we have it all stored on our property as well. We have root cellars, which American people will understand and European people will understand. And the root cellar looks after the potatoes and pears and apples and salamis and various things like that. And so we very much grew everything that we could possibly grow. We preserved everything that we could possibly do. And so when we began, we were only 17, And we decided, I was talking to Paul at the age of 17, telling him about my auras and my energies and everything, not the word aura, because I didn't know what that was until I was 23, but the energies. And I knew how everybody mixed together, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good at all. So I said I needed a house with no neighbours across the road, behind me or beside me. That's what I needed. To stay calm. And we decided that we were going to aim for a rural property. So we went looking for a rural property, and we found that the price at our age, we couldn't even have a deposit. Oh, it's my gorgeous husband building our mud brick house. He made 3,000 mud bricks. He's still there. He's making 3,000 mud bricks and built our house. Anyway, so what we did is we bought an old house that was dilapidated. We spent 2.5 years learning it, building skills on it, and renovating it. Then we sold it and we made money on that. Then we bought another dilapidated house and we did that one up and we made more money on that. And now we had a deposit for a rural property. So by that time we were 27, 28 years old, and we bought our rural property. And it was 8 acres of beautiful, beautiful land, had a dilapidated house because we didn't have the money to buy a good house. And so we then decorated and refurbished that and extended it and repaired it and replaced the roof and everything we had to do. But we grew our first crops according to what I had done with my grandfather and what I'd drawn up. One of the television stations, I was asked by somebody who came to see me, her brother was a journalist and he wanted to do a story on what we were doing. So he came to interview me and it went in the local paper. Then one of the television stations saw it and said, could they come and film it and interview me? And I said, yep. So they came out, filmed it, and we were growing that. And then next thing I know, we had the Biological Farmers Association coming. We had the New South Wales Organic Growers Society. We had all these different groups coming from interstate. We had a team of people come from Indiana in America, come to see us. And we had lots of things because we were growing things without pest control, with natural pest control. We were using the soil. We were building the soil naturally. All our crops were coming off beautifully, and that's what happened. Then permaculture in 1980s. Permaculture started its movement in Australia, and it came out of a university of Tasmania. And they brought that to the mainland of Australia. They were being interviewed by the television station that had filmed us. And they said to these founders of permaculture, do you know Paul and Judith Collins? They've been doing this for 10 years. And they said, no, we don't. So we met up. And then we looked at what they were doing, and they came to look at what we were doing. And then we thought, we've got to teach this to the world. So permaculture has done that now. Permaculture has gone in and helped Jordan reclaim some of its desert so that it can grow food for its people instead of importing all its food. That's what permaculture does. Permaculture has gone into India, where they've burnt down and cleared all the land, and they've refurbished all the land so it can start feeding the local villages. That's what permaculture does. I support permaculture 100%. 100%, yeah. So that's how did the Earthkeepers come? We decided that it needed some kind of a name, and my husband says, we're keepers of nature. And then he said it's the earth. He came up with the name Earthkeepers, and then he registered the name and everything. There he is. There we are at 17. Yeah. We were searching for land at the age of 17. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Old souls for sure. I mean, That's amazing, especially at that time, you know.
And there we are at 27, and we were looking at purchasing our land. My father-in-law took that photo because it was goodbye suburbia, goodbye neighbours, goodbye everybody. We're going rural.
That's beautiful. So tell me, Judith, of course you wanted to go rural because the people's auras or energy fields, right? They extend. So how far do they extend so that it affects you, that you can tell, like, oh my God, I'm feeling this person or whatever?
Well, when you're born, I'm going to go back to tell you something that happens to a newborn baby, right? A newborn baby is born with a pattern of energy, which is a tribal pattern. And it allows them, when they're born, the moment they come out of the birth canal, right? The moment they come out of the birth canal, that energy allows them, a tribal energy, allows them to bond to their mother, right? And if the father is at the birth, it's an instant bond there. If the baby is taken straight from the mother and goes to adoptive parents, it allows the child to bond to the adoptive parents. So it's biological and adoptive. That allows women who die in childbirth in the old village styles, they could be adopted by the village and allowed them to bond to that tribe. So that's where that comes from. And when we look at how we respond and what we do in our life, that tribal connection has to work. 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, the moment the child has engaged, it releases from the aura. It's no longer there. But I noticed as people started to live in more and more apartment buildings, it was coming back. And prior to that, I'd only noticed that tribal energy comes about when there's massive disasters such as wildfire, hurricanes, earthquakes, that kind of thing. And it comes into the aura and allows us to help each other. People that don't know each other, strangers helping strangers. And it comes back into the aura. Well, people who live in apartments couldn't possibly live there unless this energy came back into them. People in suburbia don't have that energy in their aura, but people who live in apartments do, because they couldn't live together unless they made some kind of a connection. Because auras, in an aura, if we've got somebody on the first floor, say there's 8 apartments on the first floor, every aura is in every apartment on that 8th floor, every one of them. So the mother with 2 children and the fellow living by himself because he's divorced, and the woman over there who's left an abused relationship and she's got 3 children, all those auras are intertwined. There's nothing you can do. They've gone through the walls. They're going through the walls. And what I learned, and I learned this back in the 1970s, that as these apartment buildings were becoming more and more and more and bigger and bigger and bigger, this tribal energy was coming into the human aura. But I also noticed something else, because I study auras, right? I study what they do, how they behave and so on. If one of those people go away on holidays for 6 weeks, or even go to hospital and have surgery, and they're in hospital for 3 or 4 weeks, that tribal energy disappears out of their aura. It's only there when they live in the apartment.
Wow.
And it's allowing, the human aura allows us to live together. Fascinating, isn't it?
That is fascinating. So how far away does it go? Like, does the first floor people affect the 3rd floor people? Like, where does it end? Like, what?
Well, it'll affect the people across the corridor, the people above you, the people under you, and the people next door.
Okay. So about like 30 feet out, maybe? Like
more
30
than that.
feet?
More than that.
Okay.
Yeah, more than that. Yeah.
Wow.
if I was to say could quite easily, depending on who that person is and how old those people are, how much life experience they've got, it can go 80 to 150.
Wow. Well, I've heard of, in the spiritual community, they always say like, your aura is out really far. You need to bring it in because you're getting affected by outside energies. So is that true? Is that even true? No.
She's shaking her head. You can't bring your aura in. There is no such thing. Your aura stays where it is. You can't bring it in, right? You can't bring it in. If your aura is out there and you feel you're being infected by someone or being affected by someone, either way, right? The only thing you can do is use your eternal mind to balance that out. Now, our eternal mind, our higher self, as people say, our higher self can call on parts of the aura to be able to defend it, not protect it, defend it, right? And so it can be a simple thing like, I'm me, I'm happy with me, I don't need anybody else's energy to support me. It can be as simple as that. It can be an affirmation that you use every morning, what you get up with. If you know you're going to a toxic workplace, I teach a lot of people this. If they're earning good money, right, and they're needing to pay off their mortgage, and to do that, they're doing a toxic job with toxic people, right? Mm-hmm. They just get up every morning and say, today I'm taking the necessary steps for the rewards that I'm going to gain. And that's enough power to get through it. When you do that, we've never even talked about the colours. The colours. Let me tell you a story of the darkest aura I've ever seen. A lady came to me, and I was at one of these big shows, and she came to get her aura done, and I looked up at her, and I must have had the strange look on my face, because she leant over, put her hand on top of mine, and she said to me, "It's all right, I know the worst. I just want to know what it looks like." So I looked at the aura, and I thought, I can't put all these greys and blacks in it. It's impossible. I will not do that to somebody. It's psychologically depressing, and I will not do that. So me being me, I started to look through the layers, and because I can get into the astral quite quickly, I got into the astral, and the astral didn't have anything there for her. And I'm going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then I found out the fifth layer of the astral layer. It's got lots and lots and lots of layers. And I got out to the fifth, and there was the tiniest little pinhead of maroon energy, burgundy, claret, good glass of red wine colour, right? Colour. And a tiny little pinhead. And I put it in the aura with nothing else in the aura, nothing, just that pinhead. And she said, "What's that?" And I said, "That is the colour of survival. It's the colour of recovery. It's the colour of self-empowerment and the colour of self-advancement. And that's everything it will mean to you." Now, being in that spot, that will take 18 months to 24 months to get down underneath your feet. When it's down underneath your feet, you will have come through this and been on top of and get on top of it. And I said to her, "Something has brought you to this point." And I said, "It would be a lot of loss." And she said to me, she said, "My husband and I have been in business for many years, and his partner embezzled all the money. My husband couldn't face it. He committed suicide. Then when we were selling the house, I got my son to go down to the accountant and hand in some forms that the accountant wanted. My son's bike was hit by a truck and he died instantly. And then my daughter and I were the only two left, and we rented an apartment. 6 weeks into renting the apartment, she was getting headaches, so I took her to the doctors. She had an inoperable brain tumour and was dead within 3 months.
Wow.
That's what did it to the aura. Yeah. So
Wow.
the most powerful colour in an aura, I have worked with refugees from the Vietnam War and returned soldiers, aged returned soldiers from World War II, soldiers who were prisoners in war camps, and prisoners and refugees from African countries, refugees from countries where they've been starving and they've been brought to other countries for medical help, right? So I've done all that, and I've noticed that those who have got that little bit of claret, burgundy, maroon, whatever the shade is, anywhere in their aura that can move down towards their feet, they recover, and their life starts to blossom. Something happens to them. They meet the right person. If magenta, the colour of my cardigan, right? If magenta is sitting there side by side with that burgundy, that's the colour of being in the right place at the right time for the right thing. So it's leading them for self-empowerment. And that comes out of the astral layer of the aura. I get fascinated with all the colour combinations and so on. Yeah.
Is that in your book about the auras, all this information?
Yes, it is. I wrote the Human Aura book 30 odd years ago, and I'll tell everybody right now, everything I know about the aura, I left 65% out of it, simply because when I wrote that book in the 1990s, people weren't ready for what I know about the human aura. And so what I've done, the Chinese wanted to print a copy of my aura book to go into China. And so I got the Chinese community came down here, interviewed me and worked out how they were going to do things and how the book was going to be and so on. So the book has been reproduced in the Chinese language. It's available on my website, but there's also an interview by the Chinese, and it's in English, but it's got Chinese subtitles. Now, the reason I've said that is because I then decided, and because of the Chinese publishers, they wanted a website that any readers of the book could come to. And we didn't have a website. We only had Earthkeepers, our garden website. So my husband set up the Aura website to service the Chinese community. And then I said to him, I've got so many things that I've never written about, and I should actually set the website up, if I could, as a library. And he said to me, my husband said to me, he said, well, we can do that. He said we could set up all these posts and you could write on different things to educate people. And that's what I did. So in the teaching section, there is sections on sexual abuse, sexual predators, and then there's ones on spiritual enlightenment and being contacted by spirit guides. There's ones on developing your intuition, developing communication skills, communicating with loved ones, dealing with the loss of loved ones, going through mourning, growing herbs, growing your vegetables. It's a whole range of different things. So I've got all these different categories, as you can see there on the screen. Career, work and finance. I've actually got an article on there where I looked at the human aura over 70 years and saw how much it had changed for the better and not for the better. All the changes in the human aura. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, there was on your website, there was something about how the human aura has changed um,
Yes,
from,
over the
during that time. Yeah. Yeah.
yes
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
time.
So what did you find?
Oh my God. Oh, I found so much, just so much. Like, for instance, resilience has almost, once upon a time, going back into the 50s, resilience and tenacity were in everybody's auras. Now, going up to 2026, resilience isn't there. You
Wow.
can walk down the street. Well, I can walk down the street and see 50 people passing me, and I'll stop because I see resilience once. Once. So people don't cope. That means that they can't cope with anything. They fall to pieces. But the other thing that's happened, tolerance has left the human aura. The
What
degree of
has?
tolerance. It used to be rich in the 1950s and the 60s and the 70s, where people could tolerate things personally and tolerate other people personally. And that has dissipated in the human aura.
Mm-mm.
So I hear people saying, oh, the world is awakening. Oh, yeah? Is it?
Yeah,
The world is awakening for those that are in the community of spirituality. And there's more and more people coming to spirituality. But that doesn't mean to say those people coming to spirituality have cleaned up their backyard. They're coming with all of the emotional issues that are there, plus a lack of resilience and a lack of tolerance and a lack of commitment. That's another big thing that's gone. Commitment started to dissipate in the aura as we got to the late 1990s. Yeah, as we came across the change of the century. There are other things that have come. Intellect has gone up. Levels of intelligence have gone up. Levels of practicality have dropped. And practical skills are almost eradicated out of the human aura. You can walk down a street. I can be in Los Angeles. I can be in London. I can be in Sydney, and I can walk down the street, and I'm lucky if I see any practical skills in anybody's aura. And when I do see it, that person is over the age of 60.
Wow. Wow. And so you have a whole book about this, right? There's also a whole book about the changes in the
No,
last.
I don't. There's a post on it, a very detailed
Oh, it's
post.
just a post. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
also too, I've done a lot of research on the human aura and technology. So there's an article there on the mobile phone and what it does to the human aura, and it's not good. I've also done what computers, sitting at a computer all day, what it does to the human aura and so on. And I've also got, hey, how do you fix that? Because this is the modern world and we sit at computers. We're sitting at computers right now. What can we do? Do we cleanse ourselves? Do we protect ourselves? No. It's a simple thing. Find a tree. Find a tree that's over 20 years old and it can fix you within 10 minutes. That's all. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. I live at the beach. So I go every morning, I go watch the sunrise and I put my feet on the sand.
Yep.
And it's quite magical every day. Every day. Yeah.
Yep. That's right. Well, a tree that's more than 20 years old can bring up all the energy of Mother Earth. And so if you're in an office and you're able to at lunchtime go out and just sit under a tree, maybe close your eyes and have a 5-minute sleep. That's going to cleanse, balance, rejuvenate, bring your aura back to who you are. But you need to do it again at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, you might just get a nice glass of wine and go and sit out on your balcony, right? And look out and breathe in. Oh, you can't breathe in the air if you're in the city. I forget
Right.
that. But then look up at the sky and look up at the stars and so on. And just sit there if you're doing that on a balcony, you need a good 40 minutes, right? You need 40 minutes to work. But if you can go down to a park and sit under a tree, it only takes 10 minutes. I've actually timed it. I've had people sitting under trees and timed it, and I know exactly how much it takes.
Wow, that's beautiful. God, you've got so much knowledge. So tell me about meditation. I just went to a 10-day silent meditation retreat.
Yes.
Tell me about meditation.
All right, meditation. What does the human aura tell you about meditation? Meditation can happen instantly like that. Click of the fingers. No rituals of sitting down, deep breathing, letting your anger, letting your emotions flow, getting in touch with yourself, clearing your mind, floating away, nothing like that. The human aura, and I've taught a lot of professional people to do this, sit on an aeroplane and click of the fingers, go inside themselves, right? And all you've got to do, simple thing. You just close your eyes so you don't get distracted by your eyes. That's number one. Number two, you feel your breath. Just feel it. And your breath is silent, and your breath is easy, and your breath is rather nondescript, and you focus on the nondescript breath. And then all you have to do is ask yourself what it is that you want to achieve through this stillness of breath. And that's it. I've got 4 meditations. This is another thing. I was led by spirit in the, I don't know how long ago it was, but it was a while ago, led by spirit. One morning said that I'm going to use you as a channel, and you're going to find a recording studio. So I had to find a professional recording studio, and I was going to be used as a channel, right? And I'm used to that. I've done all these other things as well in my life. And so I went into the recording studio not knowing what was going to go on. All I knew that I was going to go into a trance. When you go into a trance, you need another human being there. So my sister-in-law came, because when you go into a trance, your mind is moved aside, and so therefore your mind is regulating your heart, it's regulating your blood pressure, your breath, it's doing all of that. When your mind is put aside like that, then another human being has to monitor your health, as well as the spirit who's doing the channeling. That is trance channeling, right? Trance channeling. So I went into the recording studio to think what I thought. They told me to book 2 hours, so I didn't know what was going to go on. So I got into the stillness of breath. Spirit came through, organised the trance, put my mind aside, set me to the beach. I enjoyed myself at the beach, went off to the beach, and my sister-in-law stayed there and monitored my body. Anyway, next thing that happened, I came out of the trance 2 hours later, and the spirit had recorded 4 different meditations for 4 different purposes, and I've got those sitting on there. One is, I consider it to be magical. It's called, they gave it the names, right? And they called it the breath of life. And what it does, it uses your breath to transport you out of your body. That's what it does. Then there's another one called the inner gift. And what it does, it takes you into first levels of the astral aura, into past lives where you've mastered all these things from previous lifetimes. And so naturally, what's going to come up may not be exactly what you asked for, but you may get automatic writing, you may not get clairvoyancy, you may get healing, and you may not get channeling. You know what I mean? It'll give you what's available to you. It comes up there. And then anyway, there's 4 of them in the team. Anybody can have a look at those, and they've got rave reviews. Everybody loves them.
Wow. Well, I'm glad I asked. So that's on your website.
Yes. So meditation, how do I go into meditation? I did it last night. I meditate most probably about 6 times a day. And I only meditate for, when you meditate that way through the aura, your 10 minutes of meditation will give you 3 hours of meditation. That's what it feels like. And so you just go into the stillness of breath, and all you got to do is just close your eyes and feel your breath, and your breath's not doing anything, and you just keep focusing on that breath, and then everything starts to happen in your aura. Yeah, it's quite enlightening.
So what does it
The best thing for people to do that if they can is just to put some instrumental music on in the background, because that will cloud out any distractions there might be of sound around you, right? So, and never ever ever, when you're developing spirituality or you're wanting to meditate, never, ever, ever play music that's got words attached to it, because it harnesses the logical mind, and the mind starts interpreting, and the emotions start to interpret the actual feelings of the music and the words. But you need to have instrumental music. Yes, instrumental music. Yeah.
So Judith, what does it do when you do the meditation? For example, this breath of life. What does that do to the aura? What does it do to it?
Oh, the breath of life meditation. The breath of life meditation takes you from the physical layer through the etheric to the twin etheric to the astral, and it channels up through the astral, and it can take you out wherever you're going, whatever the purpose of your journey is, whether or not you are connecting to another planet, whether or not you're connecting to past life loved ones that you left behind 6,000 years ago, wherever you got to go. Maybe you're going back to a past life to review skills that you need in this lifetime, so you need to look at them because you're using them in this lifetime. Maybe you learnt them in a past life, but now you're teaching them, so you go back there to find it out. I'll tell you something very funny, which is to do with my breathing. One night, many years ago, my son, who was 19 at the time, he was saying, "Oh, are we doing anything tonight?" He said, "I'm rather bored. What are we doing?" He was the only one at home, and my husband was at home, and my husband was saying, "So no," he said, I don't know. He said, I don't know. It's Friday night. Might be a good movie on or something. And I said to them, well, if you get a quilt out and get a couple of pillows, I said, where do you want to go? I'll take you. So what we did is we put some instrumental music on that was very short-lived, only 2 minutes, just to get us relaxed, get them relaxed, because Paul had never been out of his body. My son had definitely never been out of his body. And so he was there, and so we lay down the floor, and I turned both my palms upwards, because you've got chakras in the palm of your hand, and I needed them to connect to the chakras in the hand so I could lift them. And so I went into a breathing and I lifted them. And so we went for 45 minutes, and I took them into ancient Rome, where they saw all the buildings. They didn't see the day-to-day life, because that wasn't good at that time. And so I showed them the buildings, and I took them over to a stone circle in Ireland when it was being built and when it was being worshipped. And I took them, and as a fun trip on the way back, I took them down the boulevard in Paris. And when they came home, when we came back, I knew that they would have to download. So as soon as we came back, I said to them, would anybody like a hot chocolate? And they went, yes. So I went to the kitchen, made a hot chocolate. They came out, sat down, and then they downloaded what they experienced for the next 40 minutes.
Very brilliant.
Wow.
So that's what you do on a Friday night when there's nothing else to do.
Well, that sounds pretty cool to me. I would do that in a heartbeat. Oh my goodness. So Jeff, did you have any questions? I still have more questions, but I'm
just enthralled by the conversation that Judith is giving, and if anything, we're leaving a legacy as part of Paul and Judith's phenomenal story. I mean, it's been
all right.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff. Well, Paul and I, as everybody knows, 10 days after we met, we decided to make plans to get married, right? And one of the things Paul and I did is we never worked on our wedding anniversary ever. We both had jobs, but we never worked on our anniversary. We used to get up in the morning, get kids to school or whatever we had to do, and we would organise to spend 12 hours solid together, 12 solid hours together. So we would leave the house and we'd go down the coast, and we might have something to eat at the coast and wander around and go walking hand in hand. We find a rainforest and we'd go walking hand in hand through a rainforest and talk about things and so on. And we'd come back after dark. That was it. We'd come back after dark. And we did that for all the years we were married. When my husband got sick, I gave up writing books and gave up travelling for 22 years to look after him. And after he'd been sick for about a week, and he came out of hospital, he said to me, he said, I've been doing a lot of thinking, you know. And I said, well, what did you think? And he said, you know how you and I have always wanted to spend every minute of the day, every day of our life together. And I went, yes. He said, well, now that I'm sick and you're looking after me, we've got 24 hours a day, 7 days a week together. And so that's how we looked at it. We had 22 years of 7 days a week, 24 hours a day together, and we loved it.
Wow, that's beautiful. Were you able to know that this was going to happen by seeing his aura? Did you have an idea this would happen?
Yes. I'll tell you how much my husband trusted me. The doctors came into his bedside and they said, we want to talk to the two of you. And my husband had picked up an infection in hospital that damaged his kidneys and his heart. And the bacteria that he picked up was making 16,000 cells a day. And the doctor said, we can do things. We've got to test this. We've got to cut that out. We've got to do surgery for this. We've got to treat this. We can do that. We can, you know. And I looked at Paul and he looked at me very sincerely, waiting for my assessment. And I said to him, darling, I think we've hit the end of the road. And he looked at me and he said, yes, I feel it too. We've hit the end of the road. And the doctors said to us, we'll leave you to talk about it. And Paul turned to the doctors and said, you've heard us. We've hit the end of the road. And I said to the doctors, what happens now? And they said that we move you to palliative care this afternoon and that you've got about 4 to 6 days. And so that's when Paul decided that he had to set up the Aura website because he hadn't done it. So he contacted a neighbour, a family friend actually, who came out to the house and picked up everything that he needed, took it to the hospital. Paul sat up in 4 days before he died and built the Aura website. Yes, and that's the story of that. And then when he died, because I know about auras, I knew that he had to come home. The words he spoke to me before he died was, he said, I realised that I'm never going to put the key in the front door ever again. I'm never going to stop at the mailbox and pick up the mail and drive through the front gate. He said, there's so many of those things I'm never going to do again. And I said, yes, I know. When he died, I set the wheels in motion because I know about auras. I knew that because he was so bonded to me, I knew that he would stay. He would stay, right? And now this happens with mothers who die of cancer and they're left 3 children, vulnerable. They don't go anywhere. They can stay there for 10 years while their children are being reared. Every time the child cries, the mother is there soothing the child. She doesn't have to go. She doesn't have to face a life review. She doesn't have to do anything. That's her love commitment to her children. And so with Paul and I rang the funeral people and I got them to collect Paul's body from the hospital. And so they collected his body there at 8:30 in the morning. He was home at 9:30. I'd organised, my husband was a natural therapist and he had a massage table. And so I got out the massage table because it had his energy, and they laid the body on a cooling mat there, and I put him in his favourite room, and then he was there for 5.5 days. And then I had what was called a celebration of his life. Never had a funeral, never had a priest, never had a minister, never had anything like that. And because we're environmental, he had a cardboard coffin. And because Paul and I had taught self-sufficiency and sustainability all around the world to thousands and thousands of people, on his cardboard coffin, when the funeral directors picked it up, they ended up crying because on his cardboard coffin was 3,439 messages from all around the world wishing him well.
Wow.
So he died with all that love.
Yes.
He moved on to the next realm with all that love around on the coffin. And so what happened is Paul stayed around the house for 48 hours. And then after 48 hours, I was able to organise his father, who was in spirit, to be with him, to take him forward. And so I had Paul in the house. I saw Paul in the house because I see this. I saw Paul in the house. I saw what his aura was doing because he was locked into the astral layer of the aura. He was just wanting to make sure that I was okay. That's what he was trying to do.
Yep.
So consequently, the tradition of bringing the body home should be staple, because the body that comes home, the spirit is able to gradually detach from the people they have loved. Yeah.
Wow.
I do have 2 questions.
Yes.
The one is, if you were to look at Elise, for example, and if you went to her solar plexus or her stomach or her gut, would that mean it's about digesting? Is that about not only the food but life itself? And
Yes, it does. I just had a fellow come to see me the other day, friend of a friend. He's in his 40s and doctors can't find what's wrong with him, and he's dropping weight. He's dropped right down to 59 kilos or 55 kilos, his skin and bones, right? And they can't find it. And I just told him that his metabolism, the food combinations he's got, he's not metabolizing them properly. So we've just changed his food combinations, and after a week he's going to come back and see me. Yeah.
The other one was when you're talking about the apartment living. I know we've got an American audience, and I was just thinking, and we've got our, I'm talking about Congress, Parliament, Senate, where you get all these different thoughts and aspirations sitting inside those enclosed rooms, and they're all fighting for attention. What about me? It's, so intermingling of auric, which is really thought rather than feelings, because you mentioned that out of that.
Yeah, that's right. You've got all the energy there, and what makes the energy singular, and it does make it singular, if you have very strong convictions, that can make your aura more singular, where it doesn't take in people's energy. But it's only short term. It's only lived short term. It's only a couple of hours. And also too, if you've got aggression with it, that can do it as well. So if you're looking at Congress, Parliament, Congress,
Yeah.
then that's what you've got in that energy. You haven't got people being swayed by each other's energy. You've got singular. If you've got very strong auras, then they can quite easily, with their singular motion, dominate other people who are more vulnerable. And those people could become those people may not normally be vulnerable, but that morning something's happened to them and it's just made them vulnerable for an hour or so. And these empowering auras can dominate their thinking and whatever. It's exactly the same that happens with powerful leaders that persuade, millions of people to go out and do what they do, which is negatively. If you look at riots and speakers that promote violence and whatever. And what they do is they tap into the fear base, the inferiority base of an aura, and the fear base of people. And in those two things, there's usually aggression underneath it. And so that they tap into that naturally comes up through fear. If you see a lot of fear in someone's aura, it's always a tandy colour, it's always fawny colour. And then if you see aggression with it, it can lead to all kinds of violence. You can get a person who normally in life is quite amenable, but they get into a relationship and their fear of betrayal or their fear of loss comes up and it turns into domestic violence.
Right. Sleeping with the enemy. Hey, coming back
Yeah.
into Parliament or Congress,
Yeah.
Those seats or the energy of the room itself has been ingrained over decades and decades of individuals taking up their seat. Does that energy still remain in that room? And is there a sense of someone needs to come in and cleanse that particular room?
Not necessarily. Arguments, crossbench arguments, people tolerating each other's opinions to a certain extent. That can be enough to do that. Where there's been a lot of violence, though, if there's been somebody in there, bashing violence or guns or anything like that, the answer is definitely yes. Yes.
Oh, right.
But for most things, and I mean, I've done and I was telling Jeff this, I've done a lot of work. I've done all work that's most probably, I'll explain one. I've worked for national governments on big projects where I've had to sign the Official Secrets Act, so I can't talk to anybody about it, right? And when I've done that, my younger brother is a barrister and a magistrate, and or a lawyer, and he's always been my witness of what I'm signing. Yeah, so I've worked on those big projects, and I've seen how the world works big time. Criminal syndicates and networks which destroy humanity, all those kinds of things. Where they congregate, their meetings and vulnerability of people, sometimes we need to cleanse those. You get those groups of people, we need to cleanse those. I've been into a couple of just venues that people hire for courses. You hire a big venue for courses and walked in and went, whoa, these vibes aren't good. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And you can do that. You can do that with a whole range. You can do it with a smoking ceremony. You can do it with aromatherapy oils. You can do it with scented candles, or you can. I can just walk into a room. I'll tell you something funny that happened in London in a minute. I just remembered it. I can walk into the room and I can just go, Oh, for God's sake, clean yourself up. And I just do that. But I tell you something that funny that happened in London, and it'll make you laugh, right? I had been doing auras all day, and I'd been BBC television had made a documentary on all my skills. So I'd had them in the morning, then I'd been doing auras all afternoon, then I'd been doing radio. So my energy was charged, right? My husband heard about, he was an astrologer. My husband did astrology and numerology, right? And there was an astrological conference going on, an exhibition of different programs, software packages and so on. So he said to me, he said, look, it's only 2 blocks away. When you finish, he said, can we go down there? And I went, yes. So he walked in, and I walked in, and I was only halfway in the building when all the computers shut down. And everybody was running for cords and so on. Crowds of people in there, and nothing was working. Anyway, some friends of my husband who know what I do, they were right down near the stage, and they looked up at me and said, would you mind walking out of this room? And I walked out of the room, and all the computers started.
Very good.
And then at that same thing, I was being tested by different scientific things, right? And they had a Curlian machine where you put your hand on it, and it, this is a scientific thing, right? And you put your hand on it, and it shows the energy in your hands. So both hands go down on the machine, and it's got a film underneath it, and it shows the charges of energy going off. Well, this was done on that same day. My energy was highly charged. I put my hands down, and they said, just hold them there for a few seconds. So I did that, and the machine broke down, and all the rays from my hand went right off the film, and then the machine broke down. And they said, my God, what are you generating? Well, that led to something else. They decided the best thing that if I looked at an aura and I was asked to diagnose something, right? So they got people of different age groups. This is at a university, and they got different age groups, and they decided to test what was going on in my brain. And then they discovered something which I found absolutely fascinating. They found that when I'm doing this, I am using a part of my brain that belongs to prehistoric times, when our senses and awareness had to be totally in tune with each other because of the fear of living in a bigger world, and we were the vulnerable people. Yeah, so we had to have our eyes and ears and everything. Yeah. all that happened. The whole lot of that all happened within about 4 days.
Wow.
So
wow.
I am proudly prehistoric.
Well, did you meet Fred Flintstone then, did you?
Oh, I think I might have met Fred Flintstone. I think I've heard from Wilma a couple of times.
Bloody hell.
Well, it's funny because I was going to ask you if you knew how much a percentage of your brain do you use, because you know how they say that we only use 10% of our brain power, and I was wondering if you had ever measured that somehow. I don't know.
No.
So that kind of answers a little bit of it, where you're saying you are using a piece of the brain that not a lot.
I can anybody who is I can give you a really piece of information. When I worked with a lot of doctors, they used to like to play with me, get me to do things that were out of the ordinary. And when I was in Melbourne in particular, every time I worked there, they'd say, like, we'll take you out to dinner. So we go out to dinner. We're talking there, and they're talking about the cost of X-ray machines, and they're saying, my God, we could actually just pay Judith for the next 20 years to come live down here, and she could be our X-ray machine. And they're talking like that. Anyway, we finish our dinner, and then 2 days later, I get a phone call and they say to me, can you come over to this university? So I went over and they said, oh, we're going to try something. And I said, what is it? And they said, there's a new machine that's just come in and we want to see whether or not it's going to go into the hospitals or it's going to go into private practice, what it's going to do. And do you know what the machine was? An ultrasound machine. So anybody who gets any tests anywhere these days gets an ultrasound machine. Yeah. So they got all these different people up with different illnesses, all dressed in white, put them in front of me, and I diagnosed them. And then they got the machine to diagnose them, right? And this went on for about maybe 3 hours. And I didn't diagnose the illness. I diagnosed like an ultra machine does. I diagnosed where the location was, right? And then they have to medically interpret it, which happened like that. Anyway, I had to rush off to an appointment and they said, look, we'll get all the results together. How about we go out to that Swiss restaurant? We'll see you there at 7 o'clock tonight. And I go, all right then. So off I go to the Swiss restaurant and meet them all there. And there were 14 of them. And we're sitting around and I said to them, I said, well, did you get what you want? And they said, yeah, we've sent the machine back. They said because it hasn't reached its full development. It's only in its early stages. I thought you'd love that.
Of course.
Wow. Well, I have 2 questions. I mean,
yeah, go on.
I have so many questions. Oh my God, I could go on for hours. But have you ever seen a non-human aura? So not an animal, but a human that looks like a human, but it's not a human. Have you seen this? And what would those auras look like?
The answer is yes. The answer is yes. That's why you asked me the question.
Okay, so you've seen it. So what is it different than a regular human?
Oh my God, yes. There's hardly any color.
Okay.
There's hardly any color. The thing that gives us our color is what we see and what we hear and what we feel and all that. And they don't have the colors we do because they don't have emotions.
Oh, true.
There's a lot of energy out there beyond our planet, right? Who are quite, what's the word? Most probably envious of our human travel, because our human travel allows us to advance quite quickly in a spiritual level, because we've got one thing. We've got emotions, and emotions allow you to feel the height of something and the low of something. We have the measure, and emotions allow us to grow beyond ourselves, to overcome hardship, to go to advancement, to link to other people, to enlighten other people, to heal other people. So our emotions impact other people. When you get into the extraterrestrials, we have something that they don't have. We have individuality. They don't have it. They're all coming from the same clone. And so why are they interested in us? Because this is the life we're having. Does that mean to say that we are all naturally human? No, our soul has chosen this human existence. Our soul may come from somewhere else, but our soul has chosen this human commitment and journey. So therefore, they're very interested in what we're learning and what we're doing. Yeah.
Okay. And then have you heard of what an NPC is, a non-player character, or maybe It's not an extraterrestrial. It's not. It's almost like like the simulation or the video game that we live in. If you go to an airport, there's a lot of people there, but those people aren't real. They're just there for it to create an experience for you. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so what do they look like? I imagine
Well,
they have nothing.
that comes from a parallel universe. That's where it comes from. The aura delves into parallel universes. This is becoming technical now because the astral layer of the aura links into parallel universes. So you can actually flip out and get into a parallel universe. And you can do these things. You can go to another airport. You might want to go to Paris instead. So you flip out and go to Paris and you become one of those people, right? And
Oh,
so what you've got these entities that are within parallel universes that can pop in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. Yeah, that's basically where it is. There's several levels of parallel universes out
yes.
there in
Yeah.
different time zones as well. And so people can pop in and out. Yeah.
Yeah. So then do you know if we take our aura with us to that parallel reality, or does it stay
You
here?
can't go anywhere. You can't go anywhere without part of the astral aura, because it's the eternal mind is in it. So you've still got to be able to plan, think, and do all those kinds of things. That's the higher self as you know it. Yes. And so you've got to be able to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
So part of that aura goes because it's attached. It's the eternal mind is attached to it, and it's got to be able to govern. The logical mind, the brain is meanwhile back here managing your blood pressure. Yeah.
Okay. So Jeff, anything else? I've kept her long enough, and I want to make sure that we cover her website and all her books and where she can be reached and all that good stuff. So I wanted to ask you, Jeff, if you had anything else before I go on to that.
Judith, can I ask you, why did you come on and do our show today?
Why did I come on?
I mean,
the same reason the reason I wrote the Human Aura book, because I like to put life in perspective for people. That's what I like to do, put it in perspective and see that, the human aura is part of all of us. It's just part of all of us. One of the things I do on my website, people often ask me for aura readings, right? And what does their aura look like? Because I get inundated, one of the things I do, and I can do this quite quickly and deeply as well, I do I personally call aura insights. That's what I do. And that means that people can send me 3 questions that are within them that they want answered about anything. And then I go into their aura by remote viewing, and I can find out all of the answers for them. And so I do that. So people send me they book it in and send me their messages, and then I look at all of that, and then I send them an email with all the details, sometimes a lot more things. If you read the reviews, people are saying they got a lot more information than they asked for, and so on, because sometimes the questions lead to something that's more important, or something extra they need to understand, or something, or a book they need to read, or a course they need to do, or a therapy they need to seek. It's a whole range of things like that. Yeah. So that's what I do.
All right, beautiful. So this is where people can find you, right? At yourhumanaura.com.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think Earthkeepers.au, right? What was it? Earthkeepers.com.au.
Earthkeepers is where I do all my gardening and my farming and my self-sufficiency and my sustainable living. That's where I do that. But for all the other things I've been talking about as energy and healing and auras and that, they're all on the Aura website.
Okay. Wow. Beautiful. I am just really seriously honored that you came to our show and that you came and spoke to us. You are so, I know you don't want to hear this, but you are very special because you have helped so many people and really helping humanity understand itself. And really, truly, just a blessing that Jeff and I, got to talk to you and have a little piece of you and understand more. And I can't wait to get your book about auras and understand them a little bit better. Just because it's obvious that the information that's out there about auras is just, it's crap. It's crap. It's really, it's just. So I can't wait to learn more about it, and I kind of wish
it's
course, a whole training about it. But anyway, I'll take the book and just
people. If people want to think about their aura, just think about it. If your aura is changing all the time, how come you're still the same?
Right?
That's a question. There's a question. And if your aura is changing all the time, how come you still got the same handicap or the same illness? Yeah, auras have duration periods. And that's another thing I do. I tell people what their duration period is as well. There's another book called The Colour of Life, and it's got a lot of stuff in it as well. And that's the colour of the atmosphere, the rooms, how we decorate our rooms, the colour of our food, the colour of the music notes that we listen to, because music has colour. So all the notes have got colour. So it goes into all the colour aspects of our life. But one subject I will come back and talk to you about in the future is part of my learning. I've put myself in all these different places of learning, and nobody has ever interviewed me on this. I put myself in a war zone where I saw what goes on in war and how people behave. And I've worked with countless refugees, and I've learned all of that. And I can tell you right now, the aura completely changes and it behaves in a different way. Totally different way than it does in any other circumstance. That's a fascinating subject.
Absolutely. I would just love to talk about this like for days. This is just so interesting. So yes, absolutely. I would love to have you back. I'm so grateful. I'm also going to ask you those 3 questions. I'll send something in for that because my hair won't stop falling and I want to figure out where that's coming from. So, but yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Blessings to you all.
To you as well.
Yeah. All right. Love you very much. Appreciate it.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Bye. Bye.